Can you actually conceal carry all day long while completing normal daily tasks? And you know what? I break an old man's heart. We're going to learn about this and a little bit more on this episode of the Range Minded Podcast. Stay tuned. All right, welcome to the Range Minded Podcast. I'm sorry I didn't get to an episode last week. I'll tell you why in a second, but as you heard from the intro, we're going to talk about carrying all day long, doing daily normal tasks like going to work or lifting heavy things. And then I'm going to tell you the story how I broke an old man's heart. And it's a good one. All right, let's jump right into it. So let's talk about carrying a gun all day long, doing your normal daily activities. Now, I know there are some folks that say, sure, I can go to the office. I can carry in my inside the waistband holster. I can carry my Ruger LCP with no problems whatsoever. I've got a sticky holster in my pocket. I can put it in my suit jacket and it's just fine. Or maybe I got one in my briefcase, or maybe some of the gals out there have the flashbang holster, which I would be curious to know, ladies, do you actually use the flashbang holster? Or maybe some of you ladies have, what was her name? The gal that was making all sorts of cool concealed holsters like Spanx or whatever you want to call it, like, spandex shorts where they have, man, I'm digging the hole deep, aren't I? You guys know where I'm going at, right? Some people have occupations that allow them to carry with ease. Maybe they have an office job. There's nothing really crazy. The heaviest thing they carry around with them is a briefcase or maybe a handbag. But what about those of us who have to get our hands dirty for a living? Now, be honest with yourself. Have you carried? Let's look at a construction worker, right? I understand what it means to be a carpenter, a guy framing a house. Have you honestly ever tried to conceal carry a firearm while wearing your nail bags or your apron? Now, be honest with yourself. I know some of you macho dudes out there saying, yeah, dude, absolutely. I carried for 15 minutes and then, I took my gun off because it was too uncomfortable. That's what I'm getting at. That's the point of this conversation right there. So many of you know my daily job, which actually just increased to something else. But my expertise is in carpentry. I like to think of myself as a pretty good trim carpenter. I framed houses for almost 30 years. I've got a lot of experience in everything from residential to commercial. I've spent a lot of time with my nail bags on, working in a lot of different buildings. Now, when I first started in construction, I was just a kid, 14-year-old kid. Obviously, carrying a gun was not on my mind. It wasn't part of my desire, right? But the older I got, now obviously, if you guys have heard the story of my first gun and the journey that brought me here in my current situation for love of firearms, but I didn't really consider carrying at work until fairly recently. Now, the older I get, the more rotund I become in the center. It's harder to carry a gun with an apron on. I'm not talking a chef's apron. You know what I'm talking about? The nail bags where dudes are throwing 8-penny and 16-penny nails and maybe a hammer, speed square, tape measure, pencil, marker. You know what I'm talking about? It is damn near impossible to carry inside the waistband while wearing one of those aprons. Now, I know because I do, play outside the box a little bit. I understand how to use other things as life-saving devices. Like There's some things you can do with a hammer, not just bash somebody's head in, but some defensive things you can do with a hammer that are pretty amazing. We can talk about that at a later date. Honestly, you need video to really comprehend what's going on, but it's pretty cool. Think about stick fighting and stuff. Some of the things they do in was it Kelly stick fighting, right? A lot of that stuff could translate to hammers. So anyway, major side note. Sorry, you know how it gets. I get distracted. There's a squirrel moment. I talk about other things in other ways. Sorry. Now, let's bring this back around. I just mentioned recently that I changed a little bit of my occupation. Not much. I still do carpentry, but I added another thing for me to do. If you follow my personal Instagram account, you'll see I was talking about something that I mentioned called Project X. I had to keep it on the DL for a minute until everything came together. Uh, but uh, but there's a new plastics company here in Southeast Idaho. I'm part of it. We do thermoforming. Um, we do laser cutting, laser engraving, that kind of stuff. There's more to come with that too. I can't talk about phase two of that because lots of money involved, lots of ducks I got to put in a row. Oh, not just me, but lots of ducks that need to be put in a row before I can talk about phase two, which is still pretty cool. And we do have some customers, which is great because that means we're making money. Now, because I'm not putting on my nail apron as often, I can carry more often. So I can just show up in a pair of jeans with a good gun belt and a t-shirt, and I can work all day long. I've done it, right? Work in the shop, run the laser cutter, run the thermoformer, no big deal. Because my ability to do so, my ability to carry has changed just a little bit. But what about in your daily life? I know we talk about this all the time. Nick and I have talked about this before. I'm sure Mark and way back, if you go in the Wayback Machine to some previous episodes, I'm sure we've talked about this before about carrying every day. And we encourage you to carry a firearm every day. I mean, that's the point of the podcast, right? Is being a good steward of the Second Amendment. Part about being a good steward is having that life-saving device with you at all times. We see what the world is turning into. I'm sure you've seen some of the videos floating around. I think it was in Oakland. People just getting beat up for no reason. You know, these mobs come out. I'm not saying a gun will answer the whole situation against a whole mob, but it might. It might. You know, you just don't know. But I digress again. In your daily life, do you honestly venture to carry? Now, where am I going with this? Okay. The reason why I didn't get a show out last week is I was helping my mom move. Maybe you know or not, my dad recently passed away, uh, which sucks, by the way. Losing a parent is one of the hardest things I've ever had to deal with in my entire life. And I've had to deal with some hard situations. But my mom sold her house in this little country town, and she moved to Utah, to Ogden. Okay, if you've ever been to Ogden, you'll understand why I chose to carry a gun the entire time while moving my mom. Not to rag on Ogden, all you folks down there in Utah that live in Ogden. There are some beautiful places in Ogden, but in my experience, the majority of Ogden, you need to carry a life-saving device more often than not. That's just my perception. Maybe some of you lifers down there understand it differently than I do. I've got family that lives down there. Before my mom moved down, I have siblings that live in Ogden. Dude, that place is rough. Now, it's not like Compton rough, but it's getting pretty damn close. Because of that, I chose to carry a firearm the entire time we were moving my mom into her new place. Now, I don't know if you've really thought about that. Have you thought about carrying concealed while moving furniture, moving boxes, moving heavy things in and out of a building. It puts a different dynamic to it, right? Suddenly you're bending in different positions, you're getting really sweaty, you're having to lift like we tried to move this stupid armoire into her place. It was a nightmare. I had to rip the molding off of the stupid piece of furniture to get it in her house. Absolute nightmare. The whole time while carrying a firearm. Now, could have I just thrown the gun in the car, locked it, and said, "Fine, it's easier not to"? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But but who am I to tell you that you need to be a good steward? You need to be carrying the whole time and me not do it. That wouldn't be cool. That would make me a hypocrite, right? Now, mind you, there's days that that I just choose not to carry. That happens, right? We all kind of go through these phases. If you've carried a gun for a long period of time, you're going to go through these ebbs and flows. Maybe you're better than me. Maybe you've made a commitment. You've repented of your ways of non life saving equipment, and you carry a firearm, you carry a pocket knife, you carry a flashlight, a tactical pen, a Kubaton, whatever. Maybe you're better than I am, but I'm telling you, there are probably more of us than want to admit that sometimes we just decide, oh, I'm not going to carry today. I'm here to tell you the choice is yours. I'm not going to tell you you have to carry, you shouldn't be carrying, whatever. But you need to think about every possible situation. It is better to have it and not need it than it is to need it and not have it. Now, luckily, this part of Ogden that my mom's living in is actually pretty safe. It's pretty nice. But once you pull off I-15 and you get on whatever 12th or 21st or 31st Street, right there by I-15, I don't care who you are. Look, man, I'm sorry, Ogden. It's a dumpster fire. Clean up your house, man. I didn't feel comfortable not caring. And the way the world is going, even on the freeway, I mean, anymore, you have no idea what kind of a Looney Tune is in the car next to you and what kind of a freak show they're, who knows? Mental capacity, all this shit is going on in the world right now. And it just seems like that people are just doing crazy things. I think you've heard me say it before, desperate people do desperate things. And it seems like there's a lot of desperation. If you haven't carried for a while, let me proselyte to you a minute here. Let me evangelize to you for just a hot minute. If you haven't been carrying something, some kind of life-saving tool, if you're paying attention to anything that's going on in the world around you, may I invite you, strongly encourage you, get some kind of life-saving device and then learn how to use it and implement that in your daily life. Now, that might just be jujitsu. Now, I think did we talk about jujitsu a show or two ago? Jujitsu is not always the answer. Oh no, it wasn't. I was talking to Adam Boyce, friend of the show, Spartan Mode. Follow him on Instagram. Take one of his knife seminars. Absolutely amazing. Good friend of mine. We're trying to get things worked out. We want to teach some classes together. Absolute stud. He understands a lot of things. He's known for his defensive knife stuff. He doesn't teach knife fighting. If you want to learn knife fighting, go somewhere else because that is not what he teaches. He teaches defensive use. That's all we're talking about right now is defensive use. I carry a gun because I can't carry a police officer. You've heard that old FUD joke, right? I carry a gun because I am the immediate responder to a situation that may happen to me or my family. The immediate responder. The average response time, I'm sure it's changed. It was like, what, 7 minutes for the police to show up? I live in a rural area. It'll take longer than 7 minutes. 7 minutes is a long time. 2 minutes is a long time. I am there at the situation. I am the immediate responder to the situation. So why wouldn't I what whoa, that was weird. What was that noise? Why wouldn't you carry something? Man, my computer's freaking out. That was weird. Please, please, again, I'm evangelizing to you. Please carry a device that could save your life, including some kind of medical equipment in your car, an IFAC or something. But all these tools are completely worthless. They're completely garbage, or you could be arming somebody else to use it against you if you do not get the training to know how to use it. Please educate yourself and then use it in your life. Please. That's all I'm asking. It could save your life. It could save your children's lives, your parents' lives, or some stranger in a terrible situation. You don't know. We don't get to choose when that stuff gets implemented. We just get to react. Okay? And reaction is always slower than action. But if we have some way to increase our odds for reaction, decrease our reaction time, the better the situation is going to be, the sooner it gets resolved, right? Okay. Enough with that. Can you carry while you're moving your mom into her new home? Yes, you can. Is it comfortable? No, it's not. But with the best equipment you can afford, with the training that you can afford, it sure does makes it a little easier to carry and easier to tolerate. It's not comfortable, especially when you leave your house at 7 in the morning and you get home at 2 in the morning the next day. You can carry all day long. I've done it. You can do it. If this fat bald dude can do it, you can do it. Okay? All right. Enough preaching about that. Let's tell
Make sure you like, review, and share. Now back to the Range Minded Podcast.
All right, now for the other part of the show. As I mentioned earlier, I broke an old man's heart. Now, I don't make it a habit of doing that kind of stuff. It is 2023, and whatever your particular proclivities are, that's up to you. But it's not that way that I broke the old man's heart. So it is now time for me to renew my concealed weapons permit in the state of Idaho. Now, I live in a nice, small, rural community, and it used to be that I could just walk in and take care of whatever I wanted to take care of. Everybody knew who I was. My dad and my father-in-law, they're both, pretty well known and respected in the area. So a lot of people knew who I was. Let's just put it that way, okay? I didn't know who these two dudes were. So to kind of set the scene, it was me, my wife, and we're gonna call this next gentleman old man number one, and then old man number two. And then as we had this conversation, more people showed up. So what happened is, so while we're in there waiting, sitting in the chair, at least they gave us chairs. Everybody wants to sit at a chair in a courthouse. That's super awesome. While we're sitting there, old man number one comes down and sits down next to us, and we kind of say hi or whatever. Not a big deal. I didn't know who they were. And then old man number two shows up and it comes in, whatever. That's fine. sits down, and I'm just kind of ignoring, talking to my wife, chatting back and forth, whatever. Not, not really paying attention to anything that's going on around me. The conversation's just between me and my wife. And I noticed that old man number one and old man number two are having a conversation and whatever. In the midst of their conversation, I hear old man number two ask old man number one, "So are you a member of the NRA?" And immediately, right away, my ears went into eavesdropping mode. Because whenever, I'm in public and people talk about firearms, obviously that's a big deal to me. Um, because I, I like guns, right? And so I listened to old man number two. I'll tell old man number one that, excuse me, I'm drinking my nice cold beverage. Old man number two talks about that was talking to old man number one about how our rights are being eroded away, and there's a huge fight against our firearms rights. Definitely proselyting how wonderful the NRA is to old man number one. And old man number one replies, "Well, I used to be a member of the NRA, and I didn't hear the whole conversation about why he's not anymore or whatever." And old man number two continues to talk about it, and I just had to say, "Okay, I don't mean to interlude into your conversation, because I don't like it when people eavesdrop and listen to my conversations. Right? That it is super rude and super annoying, but I just could not let it go." Okay, and as old man number two had a hard time hearing. He was definitely seasoned. He was up in years. He's probably spent a lot of time in the fields. You could definitely tell he was old school farmer. I mean, if you live in a rural community, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You can tell the old school, hardworking, uh, serious old dudes, right? The old farmers. You can just tell by looking at them. I'm gonna have a drink real quick. Sorry, I'm getting heated up here. This is getting good. So anyway, I say, excuse me. I couldn't help but hearing your conversation. I appreciate what you're doing with the NRA, um, but I will never donate another dime to the NRA. And he kind of looks at me. Old man number two looks at me and says, "On what?" And I says, "I will never donate another dime to the NRA, and I'll tell you why." So I know the old man had no clue what the NRA's been up to the last few years. No clue whatsoever. So I felt it was my duty as a good steward of the Second Amendment to bring these two older gentlemen up to speed with the clown show that the NRA has been over the last few years. I think it was brought to light in 2019 about the funny business that Wayne and uh, and the board of directors has been up to, and it's been a nightmare ever since then. So I talked to him. Hey, you know what? Wayne has come out that he's bought thousands of dollars in suits. He's spent millions of dollars in private travel. I was reading some other stuff that we'll talk about here in a minute. That on our dime, membership money, he flew to the Bahamas multiple times. We now know that he picked up his niece. Which, don't you think that's a little weird? Picked up his niece in, I don't know, Tennessee or somewhere multiple times. Maybe that's not his niece. Maybe that's somebody else. Whatever. Ackerman McQueen, which was what the PR company was hired by the NRA. There's a lot of money exchanging and fishy stuff going on between them two. Just a lot of garbage, man. So much junk. Now, I didn't say it this way to them, but I shared with what I knew and understood about what Wayne has been doing with our money. Now, old man number two, I imagine he probably thinks that I am like this anti-gun. I'm part of the problem. 45 is the only caliber because they don't make 46. Whatever. God shoots a 1911. He probably, that mentality, the old school, our rights are fine mentality, is the problem right now. He's shut down. I know he didn't listen to a word I said. after I told him I will never donate money to the NRA again until Wayne and the board is gone, because that's exactly how I feel. The NRA itself, I think, is a pretty solid organization, at least up to the point we found out that, or well, up to the point when they chose to change the organization within. Now, one thing we need to understand about the NRA, and maybe you know this or not, I don't know. The NRA is the oldest civil rights group or organization in the United States. It was founded in 1871. Obviously, it was centered around the Second Amendment, but I, it's a civil rights organization. It is supposed to be not just defending our Second Amendment rights, but all of the Bill of Rights, because e pluribus unum, right? With one many, all the civil rights come together. They're important. They are a whole. And once we lose one, then we're gonna lose all of them. So be that as may. The oldest civil rights organization in the United States, and probably the largest civil rights organization in the United States. Now, to be devil's advocate or to be whatever you want to call it, the left, the anti-gun group, calls and labels the NRA as a terrorist organization, as a the worst thing ever, you know, basically Hitler type stuff, which is kind of funny because it doesn't really correlate very well. They demonize the NRA. The NRA is the boogeyman just below Donald Trump to the left. So take that, you know, you got to factor that in as well. Now, all these lawsuits that are coming out, you got to understand that Letitia James, she's the New York State Attorney General, who vowed that she would take down and dismember the NRA. And so she's going to do everything possibly that she can do it. And I know that there are plenty of other groups out there that are happy to see the NRA fall. Not gun groups, not pro 2A groups, but you know, Moms Demand Action in every town, and what David Hogg with his ginormous arms. You know, there are all these people that are really motivated to ruin the NRA. So you got to factor that in as well. Now, some of the websites that I had to go do some research on because I couldn't really find a lot. Oddly enough, the NRA doesn't talk about any of this stuff. Surprise, surprise. I guess I wouldn't either. So I had to go to some of these less than favorable websites. One of them is a group. It's an every town website that's dedicated to exposing the NRA. It's like the Cthulhu of the last days, right? The NRA. And so the article, which is very lengthy, not so much caring about that, but they did actually include some audio bites from depositions and maybe even some of the court cases. So I'm gonna play some of these for you because I want you to hear these. So it's not just out of, you know how I get. I don't want you to hear my words. I want you to hear it from, you know, straight from the horse's mouth, if you get what I mean. So this guy, Mr. Marcus, he was, I believe, part of Ackerman McQueen, and talking about Wayne's leadership style. So let's see if this works here.
Mr. Macris, did Mr. LaPierre ever explain to you what he meant by management by chaos?
Yes, he said if you kept each of his advisors, sources, managers, whatever you want to call them, at odds with each other, then you would maintain control.
Did you observe any particular examples of Mr. LaPierre engaging in that activity?
Yes.
What's an example that comes to mind?
Well, he frequently would instruct me or instruct Angus or other Ackerman employees to not provide information to the treasurer's office, to Josh Powell, to the attorney Bill Brewer, to Chris Cox. He said, only give this to me, only give this information to me.
All right. I said Marcus. It's Macris. So he says, Mr. Macris says that Wayne's style of leadership is by chaos. You divide the groups and then you can control them all. Kind of like what the left is doing right now, right? A very dangerous style of leadership. That doesn't bode very well for the character of Mr. LaPierre. In fact, some of the other previous board members, there's Owen Mills. He said that the LaPierre's management was a train wreck. That was in quotes. And he bounced. He said it was just too much. And the only way to fix is if the board can fix it. It's just crazy. One of the other former board members is this gentleman who's actually a judge, Judge Philip Journey. And I thought this was kind of interesting too. Maybe. There it goes.
What does the New York AG's lawsuit reveal about the state of the NRA's corporate governance structure?
That it was worse than I ever imagined.
What do you mean by worse than you ever imagined?
In my prior experience on the National Rifle Association's board of directors, there were occasionally issues or transactions that came into question. And when I completed reading the petition, and it took me a while to read it because like about 40 pages in, I physically got sick. I was so distraught by what I read in that. And then once I got through it, it became apparent that corporate governance and the balance of power, the checks and balance system of checks and balances was essentially non-existent.
What did the New York AG's lawsuit reveal about the state of the NRA's financial controls?
That it essentially operated as a kingdom rather than a corporation.
Whose kingdom
Wayne's
does the NRA operate as? I'm sorry.
Wayne's kingdom.
Okay.
Wayne's Kingdom. So this judge, I mean, he's in previous times on the board. He said, "Yeah, I've seen transactions that were less than favorable, but we fixed them. Right, we took care of them. I mean, that just happens with an organization that size." But when he was looking at the state of the financial condition of the NRA, he was sick. He was sick. But it was Wayne's Kingdom. Wayne is a huge problem for the NRA. And the NRA, you guys can choose to remove him or a judge is going to. And if a judge gets involved, it's going to be a mess, right? It's going to be so awesome. So awesome. Thanks, Wayne. Thanks, Wayne and friends. All right, here is some of Mr. Wayne's own testimony here. I'm worried this is going to pull up some different audio. All right, here's old Wayne himself.
What did the New York AG's lawsuit reveal about the state?
You've often visited over the last
financial control
8 years the Bahamas in the summer, correct?
Correct.
And during those trips, you would stay for a week on the Yacht Illusions, isn't that correct?
That's correct.
And you started staying on the Yacht Illusions in the Bahamas.
Restart that.
for a
That
week
sounds
at a
kind of
time in
weird.
2013. You've often visited over the last 8 years the Bahamas in the summer, correct?
Correct.
And during those trips, you would stay for a week on the Yacht Illusions, isn't that correct?
That's correct.
And you started staying on the Yacht Illusions in the Bahamas for a week at a time in 2013, correct?
For security, as a security retreat.
Your Honor, I move to strike as non-responsive.
Sustained. Yes, I did.
And the family members would join you on these trips, correct? That is the trips on the
Yes.
Illusions yacht. You went at least once a year until 2019, correct? On the Illusions yacht.
Correct.
That's nice of Wayne to use our money to vacation in the Bahamas on a private yacht. Now, I don't know about you, But for me and my jobs, my boss doesn't just give me, 10 grand, 30 grand, whatever, just to go on vacation. Nope. I have to pay for my own vacation, and I don't go because I can't afford it. Yet, Wayne here was happy to spend membership money on a private yacht in the Bahamas every year because it felt secure. Yeah, it probably did because you're using other people's money to pay for it. Bless your heart, Wayne. Bless your heart. So frustrating. So frustrating. Now you can see why I was bringing all this stuff up to this old man. Yet, old man number 2 didn't want to hear it because it can't be true. Or is it? So here's another one. This is, let's see, who is this? Her name's Carolyn Meadows. Let's jump on this one. I can't remember what this one was. I should have probably labeled it a little better. All right, Mrs. Meadows, let's hear what you have to say.
And do you keep record of those messages?
I did, yes.
Do you still have those, your notes of phone calls or meetings?
No,
What happened to them?
I destroyed them.
When did you destroy them?
Earlier last year, earlier in the year.
So that would be earlier in 2019?
Yes.
Do you know, was there a reason why you destroyed those records?
I was told they could be subpoenaed and used.
Now, one thing that isn't fair is I noticed that NRA Watch there kind of removed some of the remaining audio of that. I'm going to have to do some digging to find out exactly what she finished saying there. But nonetheless, it did come out that she was destroying records because they could be used against the NRA and the NRA board. That is a big deal. Now, if you or I got subpoenaed over something and we decided to destroy any paper trail that we absolutely had on this for any reason or no reason whatsoever, we would be in big trouble. And I would also venture to say that the NRA is going to be in an immense amount of trouble. Now, I know this case, this time with the AG's office in New York, this is old news. Okay, this isn't new news. Maybe it's new to some of you, but it's been around a little while. Now, you would think that it would be all over the media because of, again, the great boogeyman that the NRA is. You know what's funny? You get on Twitter. I spend a lot of time on Twitter lately. You get on Twitter, you see like David Hogg and these other idiots that get on there and they say that the NRA is donating all this money to the political action committees. I think we talked about this. Maybe I shared it somewhere else, but the NRA donated 10 grand or something towards political campaigns. But Big Pharma donated millions and millions and millions. I don't think the NRA, now mind you, they're in some big financial issues, but they can't, or they didn't really donate, near as much as, maybe some of the big pharmaceutical companies did. Maybe got some back scratching or something there too. Anyway, I digress. Why do I bring this up? Why do I bring up this mess with the NRA? The NRA, in its inception, was a fantastic organization. Up till a few years ago, they really were fighting for your and my gun rights. They spent a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of effort into preserving those rights. I don't know for sure if it happened once Wayne became CEO and president of the NRA. I don't know if maybe Oliver North saw what was going on and he's like, "No, I'm out." I highly doubt Charlton Heston would have allowed this stuff going on. But what we do know in the court findings and stuff that we're hearing, it is definitely Wayne, his wife, and the board members that are a huge problem. Now, I know it's just hearsay or whatever. I swear I remember hearing or listening somewhere that Wayne's wife, Mrs. LaPierre, had some kind of an organization and the NRA donated an exorbitant amount of money to her organization. Now, that's one thing if it's a legit organization, but don't you think that seems a little shady? That that the wife of the CEO was getting money. Like again, I say before that the NRA is always under attack. I understand that, and it is meant to be. Anytime a shooting happens, that the left want to grandstand, they're going to try and throw the NRA under the bus. Anytime. You listen to any of the bump stock, or not? Sorry, not the bump stock, but the pistol brace stuff that did we talk about that? I don't know if we did or not. Any of the pistol brace stuff that's been going on, they always bring up the NRA. Anytime a gun bill or whatever comes through Congress, the NRA is always brought up because they're a terrorist organization. All they want to do is put guns in the streets and murders and blood running down the gutters. And they try to paint this picture that the NRA wants the United States to be this awful place, which we understand that's not true. But what the NRA has done, what Wayne and his friends have done, now they have found a way they have to be elected out of the board, but there has to be so many people on the board that will vote each other out. And because of what the makeup of the board is, they're never going to get voted out. That's a problem. Now, the board could absolutely rectify this situation. They could. They could admit that they suck. They could step down. They could resign, and good people that are absolutely willing to be on the board could fix this. It's going to be financially painful. It's going to be a mess. There's going to be a lot of mud, but it can be fixed. But not with the current makeup. No way. The NRA has spent tens of millions of dollars in legal fees. And they're going to spend hundreds of millions of dollars by the time this is all done. Between federal and civil lawsuits, there's rumblings of a class action lawsuit of life members. As a life member, if you're a life member, I am a life member of the NRA. We used to get ballots in the mail where we could vote for the board and we could say, yes, I want this person, or no, or whatever. It gave a bio. But I don't remember seeing that the last time. Maybe it was there. I don't remember seeing that in my NRA magazine. I don't know. I hope there's a member of the NRA listening to this show. I'm not a member. I hope there's somebody on the board, somebody that has an ear to somebody on the board at the very least, can hear what I am saying right now. And I'm telling all my listeners, if you are a member of the NRA, don't donate another dime to the NRA until Wayne and his cronies are gone. Because they have squandered away all the money that we worked hard and scraped and sacrificed to donate. They just pissed it away like it was nothing. And then what I'd love is when I get another stupid letter in the mail or an email saying, hey, if you donate now and upgrade your membership, we'll send you with this backpack. I don't want a stupid backpack. I don't want a stupid pocket knife. I don't want this token of shit that you're giving me to make it seem like you give a damn. Because you don't. I tell all my listeners of the podcast to donate to their state level gun rights organizations, donate to the FPC and other groups like Alan Gottlieb. Man, that guy is actually fighting for us. And there are tons of other organizations out there, even National Association of Gun Rights. They're not my favorite, but at least they're doing something, not trying to say, oh, piggyback on other bills or other people that are fighting against lawsuits, uh, they're not piggybacking saying, yeah, we're grandstanding, we did it. Where was the NRA on red flag laws? Where was the NRA on bump stocks? They're nowhere to be found. They don't care. All they want is money so the board can go out to dinner, so Wayne can go somewhere and buy a new suit and land on a yacht, pick up his niece, which is still kind of creepy, and fly somewhere. Come on, NRA. Do better. It's ridiculous. That's why I won't donate another dime. I believe in the NRA. I still do. I love the organization, but not as presently constituted. Once Wayne and his friends are gone, guess what? I got money to donate. But until then, nada. Zilch. Zero. You guys seen Three Amigos? What is the... You got to watch it. I'm not going to go into it. So that's how I broke the old man's heart. I don't know what happened after I went into, maybe Old Man 1 and Old Man 2 had a conversation after the fact. I'd be curious to hear what the conversation was. Nonetheless, stand up for your rights, my friend. Don't be scared when you hear comments like that. Don't be scared to say something, because nothing will change without it. There are too many people out there that have no clue about what's going on with the NRA. They just think that that's the only group out there. It's not. You know that. I know that. Stand up and say something. It's okay. Don't be a dick about it. Just be kind and share your thoughts and feelings about the situation. Things always work out. All right, guys, thank you so much for listening to my rant about the NRA. Remember, it's okay to carry anytime you can. Hopefully you do. Work hard to figure out how to carry. It's the right thing to do. Learn how to use the tools that you do carry. Learn about what's going on in the gun community, whether it be the NRA or some of the other groups that are fighting for our rights. Pay attention, because you need to know that information, because so many people are completely oblivious. Okay? Anyways, thank you so much for hanging out. I appreciate if you like this episode. Give us a like, a share, whatever platform you're listening to. Give us a good review or whatever you want to do. Okay, that'd be great. If there's other episodes or other stuff that you want us to talk about, email it to me. Email your suggestions. rangeminded at gmail.com, or you can message me on Instagram, on Facebook, or even Twitter. I spent a lot of time on Twitter lately. All under Range Minded. You'll find us there. Appreciate you guys. Be good stewards of the Second Amendment. Don't be scared to share your thoughts and love about this great country, because it is the greatest country anywhere. Okay? Greatest country on God's green earth. Be safe, my friends, and take somebody shooting. Until next time, thanks for listening to the Range Minded Podcast.